welcome Brian Napack, CEO of Wiley. You know, either one. Stefan von Holtzbrinck, CEO of Holtzbrinck Publishers. Don't tell secrets before the panel. You know, I wonder if we can move this thing. Is it possible to move this guy back to the panels? Anyway. All right. It is my incredible pleasure to be talking today to two real luminaries in the global publishing, education, research, and workforce sector. Brian, you're smirking. You don't think you're a luminary?
You call me a luminary, it just gets me going. Like that. That's a good thing.
It's a pretty remarkable setting. Now, many of the folks in this room are running startup companies, but I'm gonna do a quick pop quiz. What are the numbers 1807, 1869, 1843, 1842, and 1886 mean or indicate? Well, quickly, they are the years in which the Wiley and the Holtzbrinck subsidiaries were actually founded. So these two gentlemen run companies that are over 150 years old, which is, frankly, remarkable when you think about it. So,
despite appearances, it proves that I'm older than Stefan.
Well, the good news is it's a 100-year life. You guys missed the charrettes before, but now that we're moving to a 100-year life, one person could have actually almost run your companies for the whole 150 at the rate that we're going. So what I'd actually like to start off with is, despite the fact that you've got this extraordinary legacy of over 100-year-old businesses, I'm just curious of your view about the last decade. I mean, we've seen MOOCs, we've seen digitization, we have the radical new players in the higher education field, which includes many people in this room, like Southern New Hampshire, Northeastern, and others. We have boot camp, new forms of higher education, boot camps, et cetera. We have the changing demographics from millennials and now Gen Z, who have seemingly different demands and requirements than old folks like us. And we have, of course, in the U.S. at least, the enormous student debt crisis, open access, open source. So I'm just would love both of your reflections on, has there ever been a more, in your 150-plus year histories of your companies, has there ever been a decade where more radical change occurred? And then I'd also like you to talk a little bit about how you see the next decade ahead for your broad sectors.
And that's a very broad question. I would say, I think the good news is, I think that we had peace in the world the last 10 years. And I think if we talk about what's difficult, it's certainly if you don't have peace. And we're fortunate in our generation to live in this day and age, also of progress and the health that makes us live maybe to 100 years so that we can run the companies for a little bit longer. Of course, there have been many challenges, but I think there's been also for business, it has never been easy. I mean, if you're a startup company, you have to get through a lot of things that you don't know, and you adapt to it and you learn from it. Mm-hmm. And for large organizations, the only problem that you have is that you have to go back to your colleagues. And if you have an open and transparent company culture, then which is talking to the customers, which are students and professors or scientists, day by day, and then you look what's out there in the technology space, you can really not only cope with it, I think you can thrive with it. And if you look here, many great entrepreneurs in the room, you have been all thriving in your ways and forms. Traditional publishers may have not been thriving as much as some of you as the startups, but it has been a good 10 years for us with growth and many new ways to think how we can improve, and that's actually exciting.
I think there's very little question that the last 10 years has seen an acceleration in the pace of change, facilitated by digital and facilitated by the free flow of information, but certainly not limited to those things. I think the real drivers are actually societal needs, and that those are just lubricants that have gotten change to move faster and faster and faster. But as Stefan says, I mean, you don't last for 210 years as we have without being innovative and without facing change. And I'm sure when the internal combustion engine was invented, it was revolutionary, and people thought, my God, now everything's done. Certainly, as in every generation of change, there is a set of challenges that are faced. We are underpinning it all over that period of time, and for the next 10 years or 20 years or 100 years, if it's the 100-year life, are the two things that our two companies do, which is we do research and scientific knowledge, so the generation of knowledge, and then education, meaning the acquisition of knowledge and the application of it to real-world problems. That's what we do. And so you could say that pace is picking up, but those things underpin it all. Mm-hmm. So why I love the place that we're all at is being in those businesses. The generation of knowledge and the application of knowledge makes what we do perennial. It's always applicable.
If I may add two sentences, please. I think if you look at the science and the science part, I mean, 10 years ago there were half as many papers being published as today. So it's enormous growth in research. And that brings also new opportunities because the information flow has been increased. And so if you want to help scientists to navigate, that's very important, number one. And number two, in the education field, I think the biggest change and challenge is something that we see right now, which is actually what everybody in the generation, the millennials, is concerned about, but also it now trickles through to even to my generation, is what's the purpose? What's the meaning? To what extent do we need humanistically being educated? And what do we do with all these technologies? What's the end? What does mankind, if you think AI to the very end, mean? And we're not the only ones who are asking these questions. There's a lot to be done. Climate change, on the political front, and on the purpose front.
And can I get a job?
And can I get a job?
Right.
A job with purpose.
Get a job with purpose. Look, which is interesting. Ties it all together, and that's what we're facing now. So we have different worlds in the room that operated in different rooms, right? You had the education room, you had the industry room, you had the science room, you had the government room, and now they're all blending together trying to solve these problems collectively, and that's a really good thing.
Well, and I think also the blending of education and workforce. I mean, in ways that they just stayed siloed for so long, and they now are feeding on each other. Talk a little bit about that, Brian, because you all obviously made a big bet before your time, before you arrived, on the workforce segment. And how do you see that in your business, and how important is it? And
Look, it's critical. So we view ourselves in the education business being between you, the student, the mid-career professional, and the you they want to be, which includes getting a job. So between that person and a job. I don't care where it happens. I don't care whether it happens in a university or in a boot camp. I don't care if it happens online. I don't care if it happens on the job as you're coming in the door or midway through your career. And so we have reoriented Wiley over the last 10 years, and certainly have accelerated in the last year around that concept, that there are a variety of learning journeys, some of which are in traditional institutional settings, some of which are in non-traditional settings, and some of which are in the corporation. And if we just view ourselves in education as an institutional education company, then we are as obsolete as the institutions will be if they look at it that way. Absolutely. So we're trying to bridge that gap between education and application, really, in employment settings.
And this is a little bit of a parochial, U.S.-centric, question, but just love you to comment, because we have in this room, we have some of the biggest innovators in the higher education space. We have Paul LeBlanc from Southern New Hampshire. We have Scott Pulsifer from WGU. We have Arizona State. We have Northeastern, et cetera. Purdue was actually, she had to cancel yesterday, unfortunately. But universities who have really stuck their necks out from a leadership perspective to really try to change the paradigm. I'm just curious, from your perspective, as they as customers and you as companies that serve them, how important, has that dynamic been to dramatic change in delivery of learning, et cetera, and what other kind of changes do you think those kinds of revolutionaries have been able to drive?
I think you're talking about our, let's say, customers and the most cherished authors, at the same time. And I think for us publishers, it has been good that has been that out of the academia, actually, there have been a lot of technology-led initiatives, because we find that the faculty and the people in these organizations are the closest to the students, and they dedicate their life to improving their outcomes, and therefore they have a very good view on what good education looks like. Not all, you mentioned a couple of universities, but if you look at a global scale, not all universities know how to do that, and very few have the capacities and means actually to follow suit. So whereas I see the Harvards or the examples that you put out are extremely interesting examples that we as publishers can even learn from or team up with, there's a big need that extends far beyond, and that's also a huge opportunity for us and maybe for other newcomers and startups to enter that space. It's competitive, and if you don't, you have to be humble.
You have a lot of leverage because you have real volume, right?
Yeah, and you have to be humble enough to assess the situation that you're in. But at the same time, there has been, coming through decades and centuries, I think there are extremely well-crafted and skilled pedagogical concepts that have been put forth. And they're also, I think, we're not sleepy. Yeah, so everything that has to get into the classroom with, in our case, with iClicker. And for example, with sapling learning to be a good partner also when it comes to having left the classroom with sapling learning. So I think there are many good examples where we also try to put the pieces together and which are favorable. Talking about custom publishing again, and customized solutions for those who otherwise are left behind. And it's the United States, and looking at what's looming is there's a great skill gap, and publishers, we can contribute to help that narrow. There's more space. I'm a very fond believer that the education market is just only going to explosively grow given all the problems that we have. And publishers have a role to play there, maybe not as dominant as in the past, but if you're light on your feet and if you're willing to partner, we feel welcome. We are not adversaries. We feel welcome.
I agree with all of that. The work that Paul and Scott and Michael Crow have done over the last 10 years has been extraordinary. And in one sense, as our customers, we have been following them, chasing them, trying to keep up. They have set the course that now all universities are following. And so by watching them in their fundamental customer responsive or customer-centric, meaning student-centric approach to learning, in watching them, we as initially publishers, because that's what Wiley was, publisher, and now as providers of a complex suite of content, tools, services, we are now partners. And so we followed that lead and created what is now, in our Wiley Education Services, the largest network of universities and the largest set of programs in the OPM world. And we don't think of it as the OPM world. We just think that we are partnering with those customers. And now we're their partners to help them meet the needs of a whole different set of customers, which is the labor market. And so those are the conversations we're in. So yes, they changed the world in a lot of ways. And now the world, everybody's trying to catch up with them. And there are 3,000 universities in this country, only about 10% of which, or maybe 15% of which, are on the bandwagon. But they're all going to get on the bandwagon, or they're going to lose. And we, as a redefined publisher, with content, tools, services, in many cases, we're just providing services to many of these places. So we have to partner with them, or we will be cast by the wayside.
And can you talk a little bit just on the open resources topic? I just read the Babson, the latest Babson study on publishing, which finally faculty went to 51% approval of digital materials, which I thought was remarkable. But anyway, we were only at 51. But also out of that study, you saw a continued angst from and it's a wide faculty study about costs, about the cost of for students in a world where they're all suffering from costs, for the materials. I mean, what about? I mean, you've made an acquisition in the OER area, services or a business there, and you've always had a strong view there too. I mean, how much lower can we go? We've obviously been able to press down with the digital product, but how much pressure? How much lower can we go? And what role do you think open educational resources play in that, or other things?
From my point of view, the affordability debate is not over, and we will make a big stretch to accommodate for that. And as we always did, I personally always believe that's the open access to resources, be in the sciences, but also in education, is actually a good thing, and you shouldn't be in the way to hamper that progress in that direction. Given, talking about the educational need, and of course that puts a lot of pressure on the publishers, and we have to innovate and think what our future then is going to look like if that's happening. And I think the one explanation what's still out there in the question, and I alluded to what I said earlier, is that's not many. I mean, it's not just the text, that you provide. It's also the combination of the text with the many stages that you learn something, be it in the homework, be it in the in-classroom technology. So there's a holistic view on the educational course, and I think publishers there, if they have the right tools and actually interoperable solutions at hand, I think they could still be very, very helpful and supportive for the universities to come. So we might say farewell to some of the to the old world easier way of making our livings, but there is going to be a living in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're actually very close to the point where the price value proposition is normalizing. The days of the $200+ textbook are gone. Nobody's going to pay for those anymore. So if I asked you what the average price of a new textbook was, you would probably be off by a factor of 2. Our average selling price is somewhere in, it depends on how you look at it, between $55 and $65. The good OER stuff, the OER Plus stuff, is now selling in the $20 to $25 range. When you get to around a $35 price point and price and value are normalized, and we're getting full sell-through, because with digital, of course, that's the beauty of it. With digital, there is no used or rental, so we can actually get full sell-through with a homework system. You got to have it. It's all good. And so I think OER absolutely has a role, a big role, even free OER. But I believe, and I know my very good friend Stefan believes, the content matters. The core content. When you wrap it with homework systems and tools and rich media and all the other things around it, it matters even more. And then the integration of that content into learning management systems with data flowing, it matters even more. So to say that that's worth nothing is just not, the market wouldn't play it out. If that was true, publishers would have gone away 10 years ago. Well, they haven't gone away. Turns out, as I've said at your conference before, a book's a pretty good way to read a book. People like them. Kids like them. I don't think it's much. I don't think it's much that 51% would be much higher for students. It may actually be lower for students.
Interesting.
So anyway, my point being that the problem that the publishing industry faced was, above all, a price value problem, which is 2 problems. It was a price problem, but we weren't providing enough value. And now, my God, we've invested in the value side of it, and we're not losing adoptions to OER. So maybe people are, but we're not. So I do think OER as an industry will continue to grow 2, 3, 4% a year, and it's going to. But over time, the good OER, like the Lumen Learning stuff, and that stuff is going to compete, and it's going to compete on price and effectiveness. And if they're better than us and cheaper than us, they will win.
Is this just a lag factor with faculty? I mean, because if you read the survey, they just published it, but it was remarkable to me that there still was this perception from the Babson piece that the cost has not been solved. The cost issue has not been solved. This is just a lagging read of the faculty is just not fully aware.
We're getting there. I actually don't think we're there yet, but yeah, of course, there's perceptions follow reality.
Okay. Well, a lot of this is a lot of what we're doing here is talking about tech innovation, and so while I won't trickle through the litany of things, I'll leave blockchain off for now, and I'll do some other ones. But I do want to talk a little bit about AI, and for those of you who didn't see, we're going to have Kai-Fu Lee. And if you haven't read AI Superpowers, run out and read it tomorrow. It is just such a spectacular book and so wonderfully written from a perspective of both a humanist. What I love about it is, back to your point, is that he actually focuses on purpose at the end of the day, not just about the robots eating all of our jobs and our lives and everything else. So it's a wonderful book. But and he will be at ASU GSV Summit in a unique video dialogue that we're going to select, where people are going to get to pitch for. So just to flag that for you. But so how transformative, one, how is it just going to be like whatever? I mean, just daily core. I mean, nothing unusual. Is AI permeating everything that you all are doing at this point? Is it, how much do you think, is it going to transform the delivery, the personalization, anything? I mean, how are you all building up teams internally at this point to address, the implementation of AI across the platform? If you haven't already completely done it, but
I think that AI lives and dies with the amount of data that you have access to, and of course, first of all, I think there are a lot of privacy issues that we all need to take into consideration. You just can't use the student data and then say this is your performance and we are going to keep it forever. So, number one, so this is a limitation, but the reason why we made the Intellis acquisition, is that it can scan through the entire database of all open education material, resource material entirely, and then it can chunk it down into smaller entities, and then the professor can use it, and then it gets a rating, and all this is really substantial data stuff, and that's what you need. I think will it have an impact? Of course it will have, but I'm not sure which will be the organizations, companies, or even countries who will win that. In the moment, I would tend to think that China will be clearly in the lead, because they can have standards and methods across all the population. They are even double as big as Europe and the United States together in population size, and they are they're going very strong in that direction. So, the question is, in the end, who will be the winner out of the AI community, and it leaves to be thought through carefully.
Will it be, for you over the next decade within the Holtzbrinck businesses, will it be the most important, where will it sort of fall in terms of important innovation or tech implementations for you?
I think the most important part I see, because education is actually, if you look at from neuroscience and brain research and all the biochemical processes, actually education, and you see this a little bit in the slow progress of adaptivity. Yeah? It is super complex, and you have to, try to figure out what a human brain is in terms of an algorithm, and then you put all the algorithms together. It's not as straightforward. It's not as straightforward. But having said that, in the sciences, for example, I have a completely different opinion. There are science papers. You can use AI to improve the peer review, to have a pre-check on the data, whether the data supports the concept by semantic data correlation. All that, I think there are huge opportunities for us, and now we have also a substantial enough database with publishing, getting submitted 1 million papers every year at Springer, Nature, and that's there AI is tremendously helpful. And of course, in health and medicine, it's going to increase the paper output only by a significant factor, and we have to all think about how we cope with that information revolution in the science and research area, because the machines will generate scientific paper, and the humans will gloss over it and attribute some of what they think it means, but it maybe there will be a large, and this is an agreement among many scientists and eminent institutions that I talk to, that this is going to be one of the problems. And then also, how do you relate it back to finding out what the machines actually have generated? Mm-hmm. So sometimes you can't follow exactly on each individual step what's happening. There's enough we have to think of and we can do.
Well, and you had in your workforce business, I mean, you've also got selection, assessment,
absolutely,
and which has real complexities, right? I mean, related to the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's machine learning, AI, data-driven technologies are permeating all of our businesses. I really liked what Stefan was saying about the difference between education and research and science. We are making incremental steps forward, and as an industry on the education side, and I think we've seen a lot of very high-profile and very expensive investment failures. While they made some progress, they didn't necessarily generate appropriate returns. Because
I didn't do any of those.
My belief is that I did. My belief is that quite a few of them actually. But what I've learned in the education side is education is a very complex enterprise that is very human-centric and interrelations between people and people and content. It absolutely can be helped by advanced data-driven technologies, whether it be machine learning, AI, or something else. But so far, it's been 80-20. The most successful adaptive learning systems that I've worked with were actually the simplest adaptive learning systems because they had great UIs. They allowed for humans to do things better and didn't rely on that. I think it will get there. But my God, what's happening on the science side is extraordinary. We've got a team of AI engineers working on stuff that allows the machine, while researchers are both consumers of research and authors of research, right? And when a researcher is at the bench and they are trying to consume some research to help them construct an experiment, that we have some AI technologies that we've developed that allow the machine to tell the researcher what the most relevant real-time findings are in the world, and learn from that researcher's behavior, so that if I'm working on recombinant DNA something, I don't know any of this stuff, by the way. I have a few words I use over and over again. But if I am, then the absolute validated best paper shows up and is recommended to me based upon what I'm doing. And it gets better and better and better, so that they can develop knowledge faster and faster and then disseminate it to other hands faster. That's revolutionary stuff, because it's actually helping them achieve what they want to achieve in the moment. But you're right, throughout the workforce situation, the workforce applications of education, we're seeing more and more of it, but a little less revolutionary.
Interesting. Well, I want to make sure, I'd love to give an opportunity. I'm sorry you can't see us through the podium. I'll get that moved before the next panel. I couldn't carry it myself. Wanted to see if anyone had any questions from the audience for these two guys. In case I tapped into that before I keep going on my line. I can't see anybody up.
What do you think about the impact of peer-to-peer learning? We're seeing quite a lot of models coming out of Southeast Asia where fellow students are basically supporting and teaching other students. And it's within a generation, yeah? So it's like 18-year-olds teaching 16-year-olds. And what implications and opportunities does that arise within the kind of traditional publishing industry?
I don't know that's any different than it always was. It's just being facilitated now by technology in a better way. I think it's a great accelerant. If you have kids, I have kids, it happens on a real-time basis. It certainly happens in university settings. God knows it happens in a workforce setting. To the extent that we have platforms that can accelerate that, I think it's fantastic. It will have a huge amount of impact.
I think, it helps both kids, the one who teaches and the one who's being taught. And that's a very good experience. So is that a method to replace the teachers' workforce, which is undervalued, underpaid, and we don't have enough of them? I mean, the statistics in the United States don't look very good. And that one, I wouldn't think so. So we shouldn't fool ourselves and say that solves the big problem. The bigger problem is on the teacher front, and actually, also the kids, they do it temporarily. That's at least my estimate, and until they want either become a full-time professor or get out and do something else. So I think it's an admirable and positive fix of a much larger problem. Yeah, a small fix of a much larger problem.
Anybody else?
Here.
Yep.
That's good.
Sorry,
Over
Arthur.
here.
Go ahead.
Table number 7.
Should have figured.
Future textbooks. And what steps are your companies taking in that regard?
It depends on what you mean by the word textbook, and I don't say that facetiously, right? If you're thinking about the a set of printed words and images bound between two boards, and I think that there's a reasonably long tail that we will have, and I think that tail will last significantly longer than I'm working. It's a pretty damn good, effective medium for doing a lot of things in the eyes of a lot of people. But if you define the textbook as we do, look, we're 75% digital already. So to say we're a textbook company is crazy. By the way, we're only 15% even in the curriculum business anymore because we have all this workforce stuff and service stuff and all that research that we do. But if you just narrowly define it within, call it an institutional setting, the materials that they are using, the textbook is already a completely and fundamentally different thing than it was. I don't know a textbook that's published without significant digital materials. Now, those digital materials tend to be extra resources, tend to be homework systems. The future of the textbook is just in the redefinition of it, honestly. As I said earlier, it goes from pure content to content tools and services, from content that has no connection to outcomes to content that is inextricably linked to outcomes to content that is actually created because of those outcomes to help, and the definition of those outcomes changes. So define the way we at Wiley define it, and as I know is defined at Macmillan, I think it's not a tail, it's going to be a beautiful and vibrant industry going forward. We just have to normalize some of these issues that I referred to earlier.
Do you think all the players are going to survive in that rationalization?
I think in the post-secondary world, in K-12, it's a really hard world right now, and I'm not going to speak to it. In the post-secondary world, every one of the majors is doing wonderful things. In fact, one of the most successful post-secondary publishers right now is Norton, which is the least technologically advanced. I shouldn't say that. One of the least technologically advanced. They wouldn't say that they are the most technologically advanced. I don't see that. I see them adapting dramatically, but going away, there's not a lot of evidence of it.
I think if you take it a little bit further, I think I would like to thank you that we do this all over lunch because because actually, therefore, the people, the great audience here is calm, and your attention actually may not be deviated by the small little devices so much. Put it in a different level. It's very clear that if you read the latest research in neuroscience, Max Planck Institute of Nijmegen, for example, I would really hint to, reading and writing are fundamental, not just cultural methods, but also a predictor for your future intelligence, your ability to make a career or not. And I think I'm a little bit scared about. When we talk about and we have a huge boom in selling audio books, and the listening devices come into your home. So speech, voice recognition. So reading and writing is increasingly devalued. And I tell you, the one category in U.S. higher education that has suffered the most, and actually a little bit to our pain because we are there, is actually English reading and writing. It used to be taught by professors. Now it's being taught by adjuncts. They don't know if they have the job. So guess what? What's happening? You have a decrease in standard. If you talk to the deans in the universities, they are not really happy about the reading skills and the writing skills. So I would say there is to be, and if you want to have a linear, if you want to digest a large complex, intellectual complex, the reading from a textbook is still the best method to do that. Superior to the video, superior to the games, and all that. So actually, I don't believe in our falling back into the pre-Gutenberg era, and a little bit in that sense, and then taking a leap into the future without those skills. So I think we have to make a decision there. Parents at home, fathers who read to their boys. This is one of the big problems as well, because they don't do it as much as they should. And actually being strict in schools by using mobile phones in the classrooms and all that. I think that And this may sound overly conservative, but I believe there is a very strong correlation between your ability to read and to thrive in your life.
Well, all the data, the workforce data, and Matt Siegelman could tell us this. All the data supports the fact that the hard skills to find in the workforce aren't the vocational skills that are job specific. They're the soft skills, the thinking skills, the problem solving, the communicating, supporting this. These are the problems that we need to solve. If all we did was turn all of our schools into vocational schools and then broke them down into boot camps and taught those skills on an on-demand basis, we would be failing society. So we're not going to lose a lot of what exists in traditional education, because the reason those institutions exist is to help us get those skills, help us mature, to be able to work with others. And if it's very interesting, everyone knows Reviture, right? Very successful company over the last few years.
Probably everybody doesn't know Reviture.
Okay, Reviture is a company that basically partners with employers and schools in order to take students that didn't have coding skills and give them coding skills in an actual, sort of physical classroom setting, get them the skills that they need in order to get a job. So here's the interesting thing about this school designed to give students coding skills. 60% of them are computer science graduates. And when you talk to them and you ask them why they're there, they say, because I needed the soft skills. I needed to know how to communicate, to work with others. Yes, I may have needed a little bit more of a modern programming skill set. But the fundamental reason is I learned how to wear wear proper clothing to work. I learned that you had to bathe before you go to work. I didn't mean to disparage anyone that goes there, but it's sometimes we get distracted by the shiny object. And in a world where people can't get jobs, we can't find them good jobs, and where employers can't find people, we name it the skill gap. But it turns out the skill gap's kind of a different skill gap than we expected. Of course, there's an actual hard skill gap, but you can teach people those skills. This other stuff takes time, and it requires things like learning how to read and writing over long periods of time. I'm endorsing your really smart set of words, my friend Stefan. It was very...
You want to finish?
I think coming back to, there's one country in the world where bookstores are being subsidized, where the government of education says we go for textbooks, we want to make them hold in the people's hand, and they're limiting the amount of hours that kids can play games.
And who's that?
And that country begins with a C. So this is really,
China is moving ahead aggressively. Yeah. Well, I think it's you missed the opening, but Michael Moe started with a look at screen, the ridiculous expansion of screen time, and I do think we're in for a backlash of some sort.
I think we're running a great science experiment on this society right now, and I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. On that note, if the robots don't eat your jobs, let's give a big round of applause to these guys.